It's the third most common neurological condition in the country behind strokes and Alzheimer's disease. Epilepsy affects more than 3 million people in the United States alone. Yet, so few of us really know much about it, resulting in misunderstanding, stigma, and fear. In fact, 12% of American adults say they would avoid someone with epilepsy who has frequent seizures, according to the CDC. Problem author and filmmaker Louis Stanislaw knows well. In his collection of essays called Voices from the Heart, Lifting the Veil on Epilepsy, he and others share their stories of living with the condition. One of the book's contributors, Bill Meyer, was also featured in a documentary Louis made. It's called On the Edge.
For me, it's like having your brain go to war with itself. The seizures are sort of like your brain's having a firefight.
Louis and his father, Joe Stanislaw, recently joined me to talk about the book and the film and why they're fighting so hard to educate more people. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Louis, I watched the film recently and I read most, if not all, of the essays in the book. Was the book written for people like me to basically educate me about issues about epilepsy and those who have it?
It was to help or educate the public about this disease or disorder called epilepsy, because there's a stigma around about it. So it's to help them just no longer have this issue about the disease.
Have you, the parents of those with epilepsy, experience a stigma too? A lot of, I mean, in this society, we talked a few weeks ago about issues of mental illness and how, you know, that's sort of coming out of the closet little by little. In this society, when people don't understand something, they're usually scared of it. Have you experienced that?
Without question. Experienced on behalf of Louis, for Louis. And that's part of the reason he did the documentary, without question.
I have witnessed it, and I have seen it around just with people not willing to talk about it.
Do you think people are not willing to talk about it, Louis, because they feel they don't have enough? I mean, I learned a huge amount from both the film and from these essays in your book. Is it fear of the unknown? Why don't we all want to talk about something that millions of our fellow Americans have?
Because it's this disease, there are different forms of it, so people will react in different ways because they could be very still and not move, or if it's another form of the disorder, people may just move their arms and be very aggressive, so it really depends on how one reacts at times.
You know, speaking of, you're going to say something, Joe?
I think it's a lack of information and knowledge. There's a historical fear of this in almost every historical novel in every culture of the world, going to Dostoevsky and others. And they think about the seizures themselves, which are minuscule in terms of time frame. But watching it is scary, it's frightening, and the myth around it is they have something wrong with them, they have a demon. Totally wrong, totally incorrect. And we carry that to this day.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about your film, Louis, is talking to real people. I like the experts too, but I like the people in the street. Here's a little excerpt of some person on the street interviews you did. Let's watch them.
I really don't know too much about it.
It involves seizures, as I understand it, of some sort.
Not good, that's for sure.
I just know that like people shake and they're kind of like unconscious.
I know there's something about their tongue that they don't want them to bite the tongue, so sometimes I think you're supposed to put something in somebody's mouth, but I don't really know.
She said she didn't really know. One of the things, I think it's a myth, but you'll correct me if I'm wrong, one of the few things that people like me grew up learning was if you ever see someone experiencing a seizure, you should do that thing with the tongue. Is that true or is that not true?
No, that's incorrect.
It is incorrect.
Yeah. What you should do is very simple, actually.
What do you do?
Usually leave them alone, because it'll pass in 30 seconds or not much longer, but it seems like a long time. Or turn them on their side. So
breathing is easier.
Yeah, and you don't want them to swallow their saliva, basically. So you put them on their side and leave them alone. Get out of the way.
You know, it seems to me, and also from having watched the film and read the book, Louis, that one of the most important places where we have to make changes are in schools. It seems a lot of teachers, even though well-intentioned, don't know what to do. Kids are painfully cruel to fellow kids who are not exactly like them. We all know that kind of thing. Are there programs in the schools going on around the country to begin to educate both teachers and students about what this is all about?
Well, I don't know about all the states, but in certain areas there are, but not enough programs, and there need to be more.
Basic information things.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's one essay in the book, Voices from the Heart. A nurse wrote a story.
I read it.
And they weren't even taught about epilepsy in nursing school, which is kind of shocking, don't you think? And we've had experiences as parents going into hospitals where they said, oh, we can't deal with your son because he has epilepsy. Well, wait a second. Why are we here?
You know, I met you at an event for Citizens United for Research in Epilepsy, CURE. Are there networks of people who are trying to deal with this and make sure there's more research and that sort of thing? There are little subsets of this society, yes?
There are, without question. And actually, through Louis, we met CURE, because he met Susan Axelrod because of his work. But those networks are small and they're increasing. But part of the problem is the number of people who have it isn't that great. It's big enough. It's almost
well, it's still several million people in this country,
yeah.
Is it not?
Yes.
And by the way, Susan Axelrod, if people recognize the name, I always hate to identify people about who they're married to, but she is the wife of David Axelrod and wrote the introduction, did
yes,
she not?
She did.
The foreword to the book, which I think is really powerful. There is treatment for most people with epilepsy, but there's not a cure. Am I right about that?
Yes. In general, there's not a cure.
And there's treatment for somewhere in the neighborhood of 80%? Is that what I've read?
It could be something close to that.
And are we, thanks to fundraising and events and organizations like CURE, do researchers, the scientists, believe we're getting closer to a cure or no?
Well, I think they're trying. Like all disorders, they think they're experimenting with out-of-the-box thinking for treatments, because the traditional way is that one chemical route they take, and that doesn't solve everyone's problems. They need to find other solutions, and they're working hard on out-of-the-box ideas.
You know, I'd really urge everybody to read your book and to watch your movie, but until people have done that, what do you think is the single most important piece of advice or information you can share with people at home who do want to learn more, who do want to shed the biases and all this? What's the most important thing you can tell them?
To become more open in public, because people are too scared to talk about it in general.
I agree with that. I hope this begins at Louis. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much. Congratulations on your work. Joe, it's great to see you too. Thank you so much. The book again is Voices from the Heart, Lifting the Veil on Epilepsy.